Good evening. Welcome to a meeting of the Board of Education of Somerset Hills. Please be advised that this and all meetings of the board are open to the public and media consistent with the Open Public Meetings Act, and that advance notice required therein has been provided. This is a meeting of the Board of Education of Somerset Hills at which formal action may be taken. The public will have an opportunity to be heard as shown on the agenda. We've just come out of executive session. Could I have a motion to move into public?
Motion.
Thank you. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Baker.
Here.
Ms. Cooper.
Here.
Mrs. Brenda.
Here.
Mr. McDonald.
Here.
Ms. Nathans.
Here.
Mrs. Santoro.
Here.
Mrs. Tober.
Here.
Ms. Virtue.
Here.
Mrs. Fry.
Here.
Mrs. Lees.
Here. All right, we did receive one email for correspondence regarding the district calendar. In addition, this was the only piece of correspondence. However, we did receive about 150 emails that were related to the calendar that we received in the superintendent's office. Okay, superintendent.
Hi, everybody. Middle school reporters, are you here somewhere? Mr. McDonald, nice to see you. Hi.
Good evening. I'm Victoria DeVito and I'm a student council representative in 5th grade. As you have heard at a previous meeting, we were selling BMS Bulldog shirts during our lunches. We sold almost $600 worth of shirts, and that money will go towards our state student council charity, which this year is the Emmanuel Cancer Foundation. Selling these shirts supported our school's first readout during our staff student basketball game. We had over 150 people in attendance at the game. Students donated cans of food to enter the game for Nourish NJ. Teams in each grade got to participate, leading up to a final game that was between the staff and grade 8. The staff took back the trophy this year.
Is that the shirt that you're wearing?
Yes.
It's very cute.
Hi, I'm Ace McDonald, and I'm the Student Council Vice President. As winter sports are coming to a close, the girls' exciting season came to a close as they lost in the county tournament. Also, the boys' basketball team was still alive in the playoffs. They won last week over Whippany and had a game today in the semifinals, which they unfortunately lost to Denville. Last week, the 8th graders met with their parents and did scheduling for the 2020-2021 high school year. Most students said that this was a fun activity, being able to pick their classes for next year this early. We're heading into some fun activities that we would like to inform you of in February. Thank you.
Thank you both. You ready? Yes.
All right, I hope everybody had a wonderful holiday and Happy New Year to everybody. This month is definitely a good news month. We have a lot of good stuff coming. So first, Vernon High School has been awarded the College Board's Female Diversity Award for AP Computer Science A. Basically, this award is given to the schools or high schools that specifically try to increase their participation within computer science. And if you guys know about the gender gap, it's taking like one step closer to kind of closing that gender gap down. And also, speaking of AP Computer Science, Ms. Valletta, who is AP Computer Science Principal's teacher, has just been awarded Teacher of the Year here at VHS. She also advises Math League as well as teaches math courses. So she's a wonderful teacher here who just, I think on Friday, was announced Teacher of the Year, which is really exciting. Onto the Physics Olympics team, they actually just won one of the 6 events at Saturday's statewide competition. Their bridge built of only Scotch tape and newspaper was so strong that it actually broke like the testing apparatus, even with a judge like going on it. So that's pretty exciting. So congratulations to the students and Dr. Ferrara about that. In terms of the BHS Drama Club, they are currently working on their musical of the year, The Drowsy Chaperone, which will be premiering on February 28th. So that should be really exciting as I come back next month to tell you guys about that. Recently we had the Voice of Democracy essay contest. The winners were Grace Papa, Charlie Greco, who actually placed 2nd in the district, and Samantha Bender. So members of the VFW Post 7858 came to visit the students just last week to kind of congratulate them on their essays, which is really awesome. The Pinnacle was awarded first place with special merit by the American Scholastic Press Association. I feel like this is a theme we've kind of been seeing in publications, like win awards. So it's really exciting to kind of see that current theme going on. Key Club, actually they do this every year, but they recently just opened up these boxes where basically teachers will have like a dare that they will make if they get the most money, and then they donate it to charity. So for example, one of our teachers has like a dare where if he gets the most money, he'll get a spray tan and wear a Hawaiian shirt while he teaches. So so basically it's kind of a really nice incentive for people to want to donate to charities. It's really cool. So we also have a new club in the school this month. It's Women Inspiring Success and Empowerment. I believe it was by a few senior students, including Daisy Byers, but it's really cool to kind of see clubs like that come up and kind of try to bring the community together, which is awesome. Cross County, which is here with us today, they're being rewarded for being back-to-back sectional champs, which is awesome. Congratulations to Coach Hostak and Coach Sampson. That's awesome, so congratulations. And then going on with sports, girls fencing, their Sabre team, I don't know if I'm saying this correct, finished in first place. Is it? Sabre. Their Sabre team finished in first place and 2nd in districts yesterday, I believe, finishing 2nd overall. And teams will be moving forward to fence off at the Sweet 16, which is a tournament. Yesterday, which is really exciting, boys varsity basketball. They're currently at a record of 96, but senior Eddie Gambelli won the game right at the buzzer, finalizing a score of 53-52. So that was a really exciting moment for BHS. And then kind of finishing things off with seniors, the semester finally ended, so thankfully we're kind of feeling some relief as seniors are kind of waiting to hear back about admissions decisions and etc. And then we also just had our Night of the Stars, which is like something we do along with many of the activities we do. And basically seniors just dress up as like any stars or characters or famous celebrities or anything. And we kind of go on and you have the ability to win prizes. It was at the Old Mill Inn. I had a lot of fun. I think my peers also had a lot of fun. But it's kind of the first of many activities to come, which is really exciting.
Who'd you go as?
I went as a group. So we went as the Flintstones. We actually got a prize too. So it was a $5 gift card to Starbucks, so you know. And then some really exciting news, and she's actually here with us today, that NJSIAA and high schools across the state will celebrate the National Girls and Women in Sports Day, recognizing the many achievements of girls and women in sports. And this year, senior Caroline McDowell will be our recipient. So that is actually the end of our games. That was a lot though. So it was a pretty exciting month, and overall should be a pretty exciting year for the rest of the time. We're also halfway through, so we actually have 5 meetings left, and we just passed 5 meetings. So,
But who's counting?
So, and then just to kind of end, I'm sure that you've heard about it. However, the student body, like in terms of the curriculum for the end of the marking period calendar, there kind of have been some criticisms over that, particularly for students who are taking one specific topic. So for example, like I'm a history person, so I take a lot of history. So with that, like I've heard a lot of criticisms just from my peers and such, but
Thank you for sharing that. Dr. Nigel came to talk to the curriculum committee last month about how that's going so far, and we sort of decided that
we tried it for marking period 1, we would stick with it for marking period 2, but then we would kind of reflect and make a decision based on that feedback. So certainly, we know that when we try anything new, it doesn't always pan out the way we anticipated.
But it's awesome that you guys tried.
Right, well, and I appreciate you being honest and sharing it, because certainly our intent was to make things better, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
It's definitely the effort that counts, because I don't think a lot of schools are even making the effort to make students less stressed. So the fact that you guys even tried in the first place is, very much really appreciated. But yeah, that will be it for this month. I hope to be coming with you next month with a lot more better news, if it's even possible.
I don't know.
I don't think it's but yeah, thank you so much for your time.
Do you know the teacher who's doing the spray tan?
Dr. Hall. I know, this is even better, the fact that it's Dr.
You didn't announce that. It's a little out of character for Dr. Hall.
Very much.
Just a little.
Yeah.
Anyways, so as Haley kind of mentioned, cross country, we're here to celebrate their season. And I'm going to introduce Dave Shostak. But before I do, I want you to think about these numbers, because Brandon's numbers today. Dave took over the cross country program in 2002. And since that time in 2002, we were in the Colonial Hills Conference. Remember those? The old days?
Oh, yeah.
Now? Okay. 3 conference titles, 15 division titles, 16 sectional titles, combination of boys and girls, and 2 state champions in less than in the 19 years he's been our head coach. So tremendous accolades for you guys, and double that for Coach, who's been with us for a long time, and our cross-country track program's been phenomenal here. So Coach, without further ado, come on up.
So I just wanted to say a few words about these kids. They worked extremely hard this year. We started our training in early July in the heat of the summer, and they trained all the way through the end of November. And they were running 40 to 50 miles per week. On an average day, they were going 6 to 8 miles. And on the long runs, they went upwards of 14 miles. Up and down the Bernardsville Mountain. But that hard work paid off. The boys and girls captured, like Mr. Hoppy said, our 2nd consecutive state sectional championship. And both the boys and girls also finished in the top 10 in the whole state for Group 2. Girls finishing 8th, boys 2nd, and the boys qualified for the Meet of Champions and finished 16th in the entire state, public, private, large, small, you name it. So we're one of the best 20 schools in the state, so pretty impressive. We have a huge turnout here tonight. I just wanted to recognize those that were here. You guys want to come up? Do we want them to come up? Okay, you guys come up front. Everyone that's on the cross-country team, everyone, make your way up front. Like half the crowd.
Wow.
So we have here tonight a whole huge crowd. We got Eddie Byers, Dylan Crane, Lucas DeCruz, Maggie Dolan, Ryan Frank, Tim Griffin, Ryan Kleiner, Caroline McDowell, Chris Rada, Val Ayala, Andino Caminiti, Drew Chaudhry, Brianna DeCruz, Marcus Dixon, Keely Farley, Connor Flynn, Matt Gast, Patrick Griffin, Kelsey Klein, Abigail Lim, Tim McGrath, Ivy Mistley, Olivia Musum, Charlie Poor, Alex Ruffer, Angela Sayas, Sophia Santoro, and Ty Stauffer. Did I miss anybody? And Coach Sampson, of course, as well. I think I mentioned everything. So congratulations, everybody.
To turn around, pick a board member or two and shake our hands because we are happy. Thanks, guys.
Wait,
So good.
Congratulations.
You sure you wanna leave?
Just getting started.
I got it. There you go.
Thank you.
Hi, back there. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
They don't wanna stay for the audience.
Just hard. I think it could be a little harsh. Before I introduce our auditors, I just want to take a moment to point out the resolution at the top of page 2. As you may or may not know, January in New Jersey is National School Board Recognition Month. Our public schools depend upon the guidance and leadership of everyday citizens, and the volunteers at this table certainly give tirelessly of their time, week in and week out, for the betterment of the students of the Somerset Hills School District. Our system is lucky to benefit from their volunteerism, and I'm sure you join me in thanking them for these efforts. National school boards recognize the school board members whose work takes them beyond the school campus as well. We are thrilled that recently we learned our own Bob Baker is going to be recognized by school boards for his volunteerism. And yes, in the capacity that he sits here tonight, he has not only served as a board member, but he has been board president, lead negotiator, chair of finance and facilities, but he also works tirelessly outside of the school district. In Bernardsville, he has been the chairman of the borough's Green Team. He's been on the board of trustees of Bernardsville's United Methodist Church. He serves as site coordinator for Bernardsville's Volunteer Income Tax Assistance Program, where he provides free tax help to people who qualify. He also has been the treasurer for the Friends of the Bernardsville Library, a fundraising effort that provided over $50,000 to enrich the public library's program offerings. And if Bernardsville isn't big enough, Bob takes his talents outside of the borough. He has worked with the Somerset County Handyman Project for years, and he has also worked for the Mansion in May. I am sure everybody agrees that his efforts speak to his interests, talents, and volunteerism, and we are certainly lucky to benefit from all he offers us. And now the auditor.
Come here, everyone clears out everything.
Are you displaying or not?
Just walk it out. Board walks it out.
Cross-country kids.
All right, good evening. I'd just like to introduce myself. My name is Warren Korecki. I'm a consultant Clooney Company who did the audit this year. I'm here with Joe Stabby, the audit manager. We ran the day-to-day operations of the engagement. What's required by state statute? I mean, every year you do have an audit of your books and records and your accounts. And at the end of that audit, what's developed is the audit report and the auditor's management report. And what's required by state regulation, at least a brief presentation be made and take any questions from the board on what we do or what's into the report. You should have two reports. The big report is the CAPRA, which has the financial statements, and there's a small report. Even though this report is small, it's called the Auditor's Management Report. It's about 14 or 15 pages. However, the majority of auditing deals with this report because it's not just a financial audit, it's also a compliance audit. And there's an audit manual that's put out by the State Department of Education, Division of Finance. It's about 300 pages long. And in there is a variety of items that we have to check with Heather's office and make sure she's in compliance with those. This is where your recommendations would be, and this year we do have one recommendation. It's not significant, it's not material, it's just an item that has to be in here. And for the record, I'll read it in there. It basically says that the district maintained an analysis of the balance and deposit in the payroll agency account. And basically what that is, you have a bank account that has all your payroll deductions in it and things like that. At the end of the month when you reconcile, there should be an analysis of who it belongs to. And we just didn't have that or couldn't figure it out. I think Heather's working on that. We sent somebody up, another associate from the firm, to work with her to make sure this is getting done on a timely basis. I have the confidence this will be taken out next year. There'll be no recommendations. Okay. The big report is the CAFR. This is where the financial statements come from. These are developed from records in the DA's office. We go through all the records, we compile them up, and we generate the financial statements. Just a few brief comments on page 9. That's what's our report. It's called Independent Auditor's Report. It's after we review all the financial statements, this is our opinion, and it's called a clean opinion, or unmodified or unqualified opinion. There's no subject to or qualifications at all. It basically says what we audited, what standards they are, our responsibilities, and the financial statements are presented correctly. There's a lot of information in here. There's financial statements, there's district-wide, there's fund financial statements, different sections, there's notes to the financial statements. I always like to point out after the notes, I mean, there's in the back of the report, they're called supplementary schedules. They're probably more important than anything else in the financials because they're more detailed, and you can find out more about the financial operations in the back schedules than in the front because they're so consolidated. You really can't tell too much on them. There is a statistical section in here also. It talks about debt capacity. There's comparisons and demographic information. It's quite important. There's comparison, like trend information, like over the years. The only place in the entire report where there's like 10 years comparison of how you've done over the years. It's quite important to look at. And then at the end of the report, there's what's called a single audit section. The single audit section is known where we do the grants. The state requires us to do grant auditing with federal state grants. As we're doing the financial audit, there's a separate section on that. There's 2 reports by us. The grants that we did pick, I mean, they're all in compliance with the rules and regulations. They're supported by records in their office, and everything was filed timely and accurately. At this time, I'll take any questions on the audit. Anything you do, Joe can answer the questions, I can answer the questions, anything like that. But the report, I mean, the audit went really fine, and everything was in good shape. Nothing was an issue. There's no questions. What I'd like to do, though, at this time, is for Heather and the superintendent, just to say thank you for the courtesies extended to the audit. I mean, I know when these people get here, they do ask for a lot of information, and it disturbs the office and the operation. So thank you for your courtesies and cooperation during the audit. And also, I'd just like to thank the board for the business. We do appreciate the business, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. That concludes the report of the superintendent. Thank you.
Okay, public questions and comments for actionable agenda items. We very much welcome input from the public. Public comments are welcome at this time on any agenda item. Towards the end of the meeting, there is a second public forum on any topic. Please state your name and address. Comments are limited to 3 minutes, but an individual may speak a second time after all others who wish to speak on the topic have been heard. Please understand that our public forums are not structured as question and answer sessions, but are offered as opportunities to share your thoughts with the board. In instances where the board feels there is a misunderstanding or inaccuracy, the board president or superintendent may address the comment. In accordance with New Jersey statute, the board will not discuss matters regarding specific personnel. Public questions and comments will be limited to 30 minutes. Thank you for your input. Are there any public questions or comments on actionable agenda items at this time? No? Seeing none? I would like to have a motion to approve the minutes. Second.
Second.
Okay. At this time,
Any discussion?
any discussion on the minutes? Oh, was anybody not?
There's a couple of people who are not here.
That's right. Okay, so,
Well, but it says,
Some,
okay. Right, so
so
obviously
you
I
would
wasn't here.
abstain from
I have to
December
abstain
11th,
for the
but you
first
could
one, yeah.
agree to January 2nd.
Okay, so I'll do roll call and then people can say. All right, Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mrs. Brenda,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Mr. Nathans, Ms. Nathans, sorry.
Abstain.
Yeah. Mrs. Santoro,
Yes.
Mrs. Tober,
Yes.
Ms. Virtue,
Yes.
Mrs. Wright.
Abstain.
From December 11th, but you can read to January 2nd, and same with, Sam, yes.
Right.
And then Mrs. Lees.
Yes.
Good.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank
Okay. Okay. Bob, finance?
All right, the Finance Committee met on January 22nd, last Wednesday, for an hour and a half. I'll go over the highlights of what we talked about. The first item we talked about was the first draft of the school budget for the coming year, 2020-21. The goal of hitting a 2% increase for next year still needs a lot more work by the administration. We've got a lot of moving parts that we're working with. We have staffing changes, plus and minuses. We have capital projects that we've been talking about. How much of the referendum money we still have left over to return. Whether we should use bank cap, which is what bank cap is, I think I'll explain it some other time, it's a complicated conversation. Transportation and special ed, those are the big picture items that we're going to wrestle with. So we want to close that gap and hit the 2% increase. So we're going to continue to work on that for these next few months. And just so everybody understands, we're going to give a public presentation of the budget in March, and then we're going to vote on the final budget in April. So we have next month. It's going to still be in a draft situation, and then in March we're going to have pretty much the final budget for presentation. We'll have a public hearing on that. We looked at the audit that the auditor just gave us. We looked through it. There's some good tables in there. I'd recommend people to look at some of the tax ratables and in there, and you'll see why the tax rate in Burnsville is going down, the tax rate in Far Hills is going down, but the tax rate of ratables in PG is going up. So it's a kind of a good thing to look at. You can see what each town is going through. There's things on our bonds in there. You'll see that we're paying those bonds as we're going. So there's a lot of good tables in there that I'd recommend that you take a look at. We talked about how to dispose of unused equipment. There's a government deals.com. I went to the website. You can look at it. Municipalities can get rid of stuff they don't want anymore. It's like an eBay auction. So we're going to try to get rid of some equipment. That way you actually can make some money with a low cost outlay. So we're going to try that going forward. We talked about the YMCA aftercare, or pre-care aftercare program. We realized that we don't have a formal contract or memorandum of agreement with the YMCA for the $20,000 they pay us per year for using Bedwell in the morning and afternoon. So Heather is going to work on getting that structure going forward. There's several things on the agenda that I'll point out we're voting on. We're voting on fundraisers. We're voting on the Pitney equipment lease. We have a SLEO contract, and in there, the change of those officers, since the borough works on a calendar year and we work on a fiscal year, a school year, they don't match. So we're going to go for a 6-month contract so we can keep in sync with our budget and their budget, and we'll reconcile at those 6-month mileposts. So we're going to do that. So that's what we're approving tonight. We're also approving several agencies that supply paras. We're having a hard time getting paraprofessionals on time in the schools when we need them. So the more vendors we can ask we could get adequate cameras. We're approving a GPS for the school buses. We talked about that at the last meeting. And we're also approving that the auditor will do verify the A4A1 and the A42 reconciliation with Bedminster. So we're going to share that cost. That's $7,500 to share between us to get what the tuition numbers are exactly. So that's what we're approving. So I would like to move motions 1 through 17 on the agenda. I need a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
No discussion? Okay.
Roll call. Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mrs. Brenda,
Yes.
Mr. McDonald,
Yes.
Ms. Nathans,
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro,
Yes.
Mrs. Tober,
Yes.
Ms. Virtue,
Yes.
Mrs. Wright,
Yes.
Mrs. Lees.
Yes. Okay, Bob, you might as well
Keep on
move
going.
on.
Keep
Keep
on
on.
So the Facilities and Operation Committee met the same day right afterwards for an hour and 15 minutes. We talked about it's the vulture damage on the roof of the PAC Center. And these black vultures have come to town these last few years. They replaced the turkey vultures. Turkey vultures were a little bit nicer. They didn't eat our roof. But these guys seem to like the plastic membrane, and they're having a field day up there. So, you know, we've been spending $4,000 a year to fix the roof. So the administration has tried all different ways to scare them off. They're a beneficial species. You can't kill them or shoot them
We would never do
or
that.
cage them or whatever. So you just have to scare them away. So we've hung effigies of vultures up there, and we'll see how it works.
It seems to be
Did someone
working.
say it was working?
Yes,
It's working, okay.
yes.
We'll see if it
That's the first time we have tried, they had tried like plastic owls before, but they were just pecked. So, yes,
Didn't some end up in the football field or something?
perhaps. So it's a rumor I have heard as well.
Right. All right. Anyway, so I'm glad to hear it is working, so that's good.
So far.
So far. We talked about capital projects. The generator set at Bedwell came for 125 kW is at $275,000. We agreed to put that in the budget, but spend $400,000 for the rooftop units we talked about the last meeting for the middle school gym is too expensive for this year's budget. So we're going to kick that to the following year. And so with a lot of other smaller capital projects and purchasing a new bus to replace one of the old small buses and a new truck, looks like we're going to spend $685,000 on capital improvements, and then probably $100,000 on maintenance. So that's what we're dealing with, and that can still change as we go through the budget. That's the numbers that we have now. So we're going to fine tune that as we go on. We've also talked about how to solve some of the student access to the Burnsville Center. We haven't come up with anything concrete yet. We talked about the SLEO contract, which I just talked about in the last report and why we're doing it. And the group also looked at the school calendar for next year, and we agree that the calendar that we're going to be voting on tonight, we agree with that proposal. So what I'd like to also do, because I want to talk about the administrator's contract that we approved last time, because we just want to give the public a quick read on that. So the administrator's contract was approved last month, and you'll see in personnel we're approving a lot of salary changes for the administrators. So the best way to summarize what we agreed to with the administrators was everybody would get a 3% raise unless they made $160,000, if they made $160,000, they would only get $4,800. That's a flat raise going forward, okay, for the 3 years. We also modified a lot of wording about vacation policy, sick policy, parental leave. We cleaned up the contract, a lot of wording that was confusing to the administrators, how much vacation they could carry over. So it's better than it's ever been. I'm not saying it's perfect, but I think we got the wording a lot better. We also changed their health care contributions to be similar to what the teachers are capped out at for Chapter 78, which is that they get to be paid no more than 25% of the premium. And so they have agreed to that. We also took the waiver, if they waive out of health care, no more than $5,000, up to $5,000, but no more. So it used to be a percentage that would make that higher, so that's less. So and that's about it for that contract. So that was approved, and that's why all the salaries are in the agenda. You've got to do all those retro payments back to a year and a half ago, because we're halfway through the contract. Even though we approved it, we're halfway through it. So that is. So I'd like to move motions 1 and 2 on the agenda for F&O. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Okay.
Roll call. Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mrs. Brenda?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Ms. Nathan?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Mrs. Tover?
Yes.
Ms. Virtue?
Yes.
Mrs. Wright?
Yes.
Mrs. Lees?
Yes. Okay, Janice, curriculum.
Curriculum committee met on January 21st of this year. Attending members besides myself were Jamie Lees, Nicole Hooper, Sam Frenda, and Heather Santoro as an alternate for Sarah Nathans. Administrators attending were Gretchen Dempsey, Colleen Butler, and Scott Nyland. First, all field trips were discussed by the committee and recommended for approval. Then the committee had a lengthy discussion on both 2020-21 proposed calendars. Colleen Butler shared the results of surveys taken and information gathered from our high school students and school community. In reviewing the calendars, the late date of Labor Day prompted us to start school earlier this year. Therefore, the committee is recommending that the board adopt the proposed calendar A1 with a start date of September 1st, 2020. After that, Gretchen Dempsey reviewed the responsibilities necessary to sustain the Bedwell Garden, which are, to say the least, extensive. Jim McCarron developed and grew the Bedwell Garden a number of years ago, and he, with the help of volunteers, have been maintaining it. Over time, the garden has expanded to include greenhouse structures, vegetable and flower beds, bushes, butterfly gardens, plant sales, installation of a pond, and garden-to-table veggies for the cafeteria. This is only a portion of what the garden is about. Since many Bedwell students have a deep interest in the garden, we would like to see this interest continue to be nurtured into the middle school. The committee is recommending that a stipend position be created so that the garden can be sustained well into the future. Finance is going to look into this. The following issues are under discussion. Gretchen Dempsey explained there is a need to review our gifted and talented program to be sure that all levels are provided with G&T opportunities. We will be looking further into the program, particularly 5th grade, so there are no holes in it. After that, Scott Nigel reported to the group that he would like to have a balance in our testing schedule. He is interested in getting more feedback from students. The idea then was discussed to look at semesters instead of marking periods. Testing on an entire year is a lot. Semester testing would be preferable. When we then discussed if it would be beneficial to have some pass-fail electives, neither Scott nor the teachers were in favor. Lastly, Colleen Butler gave an update on the SLE program. The SLE program is in place for our STAR students. In regards to offering the SLE program to our Gen Ed students, discussions with the SLE organization is needed. Details which will be under discussion and considered will be what makes the most educational and financial sense. Scott mentioned most schools he knows of that participate in the SLE program do so in May and June, and it is offered to interested seniors. Just for your information, SLE is structured learning experiences. So I'd like to move items 1 through 5 on the agenda and number 3 on the addendum.
Second. Any discussion?
I have a question and a comment about the calendar. So in terms of the calendar, I think it was great that we went out to the community and solicited feedback that way. Just curious if teacher input or input from the association was received.
Sure.
Maybe just to share with the public.
I'm gonna let Colleen speak to that just because she was so heavily involved in that work.
We were able to speak with the membership's leadership to get feedback from that.
And they are
And the
comfortable
feedback
that
was-
what is currently proposed as A1, which is the calendar that the curriculum committee is endorsing and the other committees certainly seem to weigh in on, meets with the contractual language that is currently in our SHE agreement.
I have to say, I was a little concerned about this earlier start. I think through discussions and hearing feedback from the public as well, I understand the educational benefits. I have a concern that it could creep from September into August. And just wondering if there was the opportunity to maybe look further than just a year ahead and maybe appease people's minds that we're
Yes.
not gonna get that creep into August.
Well, and I think what the curriculum committee talked about, and certainly anybody who serves on that weigh in, was that rather than take this look where we look at 1 year at a time, we wanna come back to, we're looking at next year in January. Historically, that was looked at in March. So we've moved that look earlier in the year so that we have a little more lead time. We committed to saying, let's come back in March and now look at the following year so that by the end of this school year, we should have calendars in place both for next year and the year after that. I think certainly there has been conversation around earlier dates and to your point, that August and benefits for one group, drawbacks for another. I think there's lots of discussion to still have. I appreciate what you said, Kathy, about the opportunity for people to weigh in. That is certainly something that we are committed to. Colleen not only went to every HSA meeting, the high school students were surveyed, and we put things in the Friday folder for parents to weigh in. I don't know if you have a last count, but I know she got it, oh, there you go. I didn't really even know.
We received 167 emails from the community commenting on their ideas.
So, I think that feedback is important for us. I certainly know that everybody on this, in this board is committed to representing their constituencies, and I think something like this has, you talk about the educational piece, but there's an emotional piece too, and there's that tradition of how it's always been. And in this particular case, really, I do think the conversation was prompted because of the date, that Labor Day fell, and that idea that if we kind of went with what we had normally done, we would be going to school through June 24th and not starting till September 10th. And that was, something we thought warranted but we will, we'll keep plugging away.
And Bonnie, what
So
was the final breakdown of the responses?
About that too. The final breakdown was, I didn't do my percents with the
I actually
latest
have-
one. That, we received more after that. 120 of the people who responded wanted to come back before Labor Day. 56 did not want to come back before Labor Day.
And I feel like, Colleen, and you tell me, I feel like generally speaking, throughout the process, that ratio
It
felt like
stayed.
it sort of stayed the same.
And we had 6 who really just had questioning, just in case you count those numbers up and they don't count. Yeah.
So if you do look at the ratio is pretty much the same, then it would be the majority, like 65% of those responded were in favor of the early start date as opposed to 31%, so it's a huge majority.
We got a lot of feedback.
We did.
Can I
Good
just
job, Colleen.
ask a follow-up question, Gretchen? So you mentioned something about not prior to September 1st.
That is language that is currently in the Shea contract.
So for the next few years, it would be safe to say or assume that we wouldn't start any earlier than we are this year because the teachers come back,
I think
for
that
the-
is conversation that we have yet to have.
but for the next few, so it's through the life of the current contract. Is
That
that
is
correct?
That is language that is currently in the contract.
Any other comments, questions, discussion?
Roll call. Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mrs. Brenda?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Ms. Nathans?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Mrs. Tover?
Yes.
Ms. Virtue?
Yes.
Mrs. Wright?
Yes.
Mrs. Lees?
Yes. Heather, personnel.
Okay. Sorry, I feel like I'm taking.
Personnel met on the 21st and all of our members were in attendance. We started out by receiving an update from Mrs. Butler regarding a psychologist position that we added last year at the high school. And overall, got very positive feedback that this position has been beneficial in alleviating the workload of our previously existing counselors to some degree, and guidance counselors. And this role and person has been instrumental in supporting implementation of mental health and well-being programs and instruction at the high school. One of the things we talked about was, because I think the intention around this position was also to hopefully alleviate some of our SACS workload so that, specifically workload at the high school so that she could be more involved at the middle school in Bedwell. So Mrs. Butler was gonna reach out to her and kind of get some more information on that. But in May, Mrs. Butler will be doing a presentation for the whole board on the details of that position and what has been going on. So that's all very positive to hear. And we're at the time of year where we're compiling our school budgets and we are starting to get a sense of enrollment, although kindergarten enrollment is just taking place. So Dr. Dempsey is going to continuously monitor enrollment and determine our personnel needs based upon this information. And as we talked about in a couple of committees, our demographer is projecting our population to decrease over the next 5 years. So we're just balancing everything as it happens real time. So I would like to move personnel items 1 through 21 on the agenda and numbers 4 and 21 on the addendum.
And I just want to say before the board, I know you're going to all be entering into discussion, but certainly I'm sure that you all know that Teresa Vaught is retiring. She has served our district for years, in a capacity that we rely on, and she really is in many ways a one-woman show. She reminds me of that Cat in the Hat where the goldfish bowl is up on the stick. She's always got a million things happening at once, and she does it all so well. So she is somebody who will be sorely missed.
Very much miss. Okay. Did we get a second on the?
I'm sorry.
We need a second. Okay, 1 second. And discussion.
I just have a question regarding Lisa Drew as SAC. She's responsible for Bedwell as well? Has that always been the case?
She has always served in a K-12 capacity, to my knowledge. Colleen, do you know any different?
My understanding was that she previously she spent the majority of her time at the middle school.
Right. And I don't mean to say, Sam, that I believe that she had efforts that were focused at Bedwell. I believe that her title is defined as a K-12 position. But to your point, I don't.
Prior to that, we had a halftime SAC.
Right.
So I'm not sure where.
And that person, I believe, is at the middle school, but then when she was the sole SAC, I thought she was a district-wide. Now, in saying that, on paper, was she district-wide? Yes. In her efforts, were they focused at the elementary school? No. I think to my knowledge, I can't think of really anything that she directly impacted there.
Well, she's done some programming with Mrs. Pike. She'll do things like that. I think her K-12 role is partially programming. When she did she was the one who organized the Beijing presentation. That's really a K-12 effort.
Just wanted to just make one comment. I was saddened to see the news on Teresa Bach. And she is just such a lovely human being and an incredible professional. And what a great face for that part of our curriculum. Those are really big shoes to fill.
Absolutely.
She'll be dearly missed. So as we think about those replacements, obviously there's the professional side of the capabilities and the knowledge and the experience. But there's the personal side, which is like the compassion and the heart that she has like spades. And I think it's important that we be mindful of that because it's an incredibly special program that she has been leading. And what has been done here in the high school with the store and all that is just really amazing and doing great things for a lot of lives. So just as we think about, as you go through that process of recruiting and interviewing, I just want to make sure that we think as much about sort of the heart and the interpersonal side of that
for sure.
as the resume. She'll be sorely missed.
No argument there.
Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mrs. Brenda?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Ms. Nathans?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Mrs. Tober?
Yes, but abstain from number 8.
Ms. Virtue?
Yes.
Mrs. Wright?
Yes.
Mrs. Lees?
Yes. Okay. Policy.
Okay. So, policy. We had a discussion around policy and regulation 8600 transportation after a public comment last month. And we are keeping it in second reading. The concern was around would it limit our ability to have subscription busing? And we feel that it will not limit that. It's not gonna cause any changes to that.
The language is in a different place and slightly reworded, but it does not impact the ability of the district to charge for transportation services.
So that will remain in the second reading tonight. We did, out of that discussion, decide that, I don't even know an appropriate timeline, but that we do want to look at our hazardous routes and review that. It's good to review them every couple of years
Yes.
and take a look at that. So, that is something that, the Director of Transportation and I believe our BA will work on eventually. Then we have also in first reading, I just have to find the policy number, sorry.
There are 2 regulations.
2 regulations, all right. With regards to our, regulation 1400, we're just making a small wording change, changing from assistant in superintendent to superintendent or designate. It just allows.
Right, years ago, the assistant superintendent position focused much of her energy around personnel, and the way that regulation currently reads, it sounds like the assistant superintendent is solely responsible for maintaining district job descriptions, and that is not necessarily the case. So we recommended that that be changed to the responsibility of the superintendent or designate.
That is in first reading. And then we took a look at our policy for class sizes. And again, kind of similar to personnel and every budgeting, what we're looking at are taking into account all demographics. And Dr. Dempsey is recommending that we make a change in that to change some of the average class sizes
and to give perhaps just, and not to jump in, Heather,
no,
a finer breakdown of the grade levels. The way it is currently written, it sort of has a recommendation for Bedwell and a recommendation for the middle school with no recognition that perhaps 5th grade isn't the same as 8th grade and 4th grade isn't the same as 1st grade. Kindergarten has always been broken out separately because it has a maximum given by code, and the high school is unchanged. So it's not so much that we're changing any intent here, but I feel that by having something that looks more at the primary grades and then the intermediate and then middle school as separate bands, it sort of recognizes the differences among those groups.
So with that, I will move policy items 1 and 2 on the agenda.
Second.
Any discussions?
So I'm clear, are we changing the maximum class size? What are we?
You should have
Yes.
the copy, Tim, of the current regulation as well as the proposed regulation. So you can see that right now, grades 1 through 4 are banded together. We split out 1 and 2, and then 3 through 5, and then 6 through 8. So there's a finer sieve, if you will.
Okay, I got it. Thank you for that clarification.
Any further discussions?
Alright, roll call. Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mrs. Brenda?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Ms. Nathans?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Mrs. Tober?
Yes.
Ms. Virtue?
Yes.
Mrs. Rai?
Yes.
Mrs. Lees?
Yes. Okay, we have an organizational action item on the agenda, which is just the board representative appointments to various organizations. Who's gonna do what here? Thank you all for volunteering for more work. I appreciate it. I would like to move item 1 under organizational action. Do I have a second? Second? Yes, thank you. Any discussion on that?
Alright, roll call. Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mrs. Frenda?
Yes.
Mr. McDonald?
Yes.
Ms. Nathans?
Yes.
Mrs. Santoro?
Yes.
Mrs. Tober?
Yes.
Ms. Virtue?
Yes.
Mrs. Rai?
Yes.
Mrs. Lees?
Yes. Okay, community relations.
All right, so the Community Relations Committee met on January 23rd. Board members in attendance were Mrs. Lees, Mrs. Santoro, Mrs. Rai, and Mrs. Frenda. And we were glad to be joined by our administrators, Dr. Dempsey and Mrs. Butler. So we started our meeting by discussing, trying to understand and aligning around the role of the Community Relations Committee. We agreed that much of last year was really spent vetting ideas that had been presented to this committee and trying to determine whether they were viable concepts that could be passed along to the curriculum committee, and we had several that were. And we decided that, again, we're looking forward to doing that type of activity, but we also felt that there was the opportunity to serve maybe even in a larger capacity, acting as a communications conduit between the BOE and the community. So we talked about that. The entire committee acknowledged the need for that and really embraced that going forward. So around the topic of this communications role, Dr. Dempsey shared with us the plans for the strategic plan renewal dates. So the first meeting around the strategic plan will be held on Tuesday, March 24th in the BHS Media Center, with the snow date that Thursday, March 26th. And then the second meeting is still being finalized, but dates around April 14th or 16th are being considered, and again, it would be held in the BHS Media Center. After circulating the proposed calendar, Dr. Dempsey then brought up the topic of the 2020 census and the importance to the district really of ensuring that the information gathered around the members of the community is accurate. She highlighted that on March 19th at the bilingual HSA meeting, Michael Catelli and others will be on hand to provide support with this activity to the attendees there. And then lastly, the committee discussed a possible opportunity to help support the community in understanding the negotiations process prior to the next round of negotiations. So this topic is going to be further discussed after the timelines for the negotiation process have been finalized. There were no items to move from this committee. So, any questions?
Supplementary matters. Anyone have anything that didn't fall under?
It's not really a matter, it's just a comment that I just wanted to say that I do understand that change can be a little difficult and it's kind of emotional. This is talking about the calendar. But I just want to say that because Colleen did so much research, that she provided the curriculum committee with all of that research. It was really very helpful to us to make a decision. So I just wanted to say that.
Public questions and comments on non-agenda items or anything. We got a lot.
Hi, I'm Janine Silverberg. My daughter's in the second grade at Bedwell, and I wanted to just say that I was happy to hear tonight that you're considering calendars for multiple years going forward. That was a comment that I made, and I was definitely concerned with. Just thinking globally about just making family plans, celebrations, graduations, things like that, to be able to know that our families can be included in those events and having time to plan that is really, really thoughtful. And I also want to commend you for the way that you went about asking for input. I do work in a public school district, and I know that sometimes my district is not great about doing that, so I really appreciated it as a parent of our district, seeing the thoughtfulness that you put forward of that. So the one thing I do want to bring up that I didn't hear tonight is half-day closures for professional development. That's definitely a concern for our family. We have two working parents, and again, being in a school myself, it's very difficult to have to juggle those half days. We're lucky that we can work with the YMCA and be able to afford having our daughter in the aftercare program, but for families that may not have those means, I hope that you'll consider other alternatives. I know other districts do professional development trainings online, specifically ones that have to be done every year, or also just make time after school for faculty to meet and plan and prepare. That really doesn't have to disrupt the school day. If you take all those half-day closures and put them together that we have, you can have 3 additional school days, not including the full-day closure in March, as well as the 2 professional days that come at the beginning of the year. So I hope when you look at those calendars going forward, you'll really take that into account as well, because it is disruptive to the educational environment for our students. So,
Thank you so much for all you shared. Just so that you, to be clear in terms of our planning, the contract that we currently have with our Teachers Association has those days built into it. So it is a negotiated thing. And I mention that only because I certainly hear all your sharing, but the contract that we have would it has a lifespan to it. And so some of that may impact when we look forward and what we're able to kind of put in place.
that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Sam on TV. Would you be able to share those class sizes, because it's in the first reading only, and we don't.
Oh, sure, it should have been posted. It wasn't,
It wasn't.
oh, I
Did I miss it?
apologize.
No, I don't think it was in there. Do you want me to read them?
I can read it, Sam, or we can, and we'll make sure that it's available and once posted.
Oh, it's on the online one. I'll look at it when I get home.
Sure.
Sorry, because it wasn't.
No worries, no worries.
Okay.
Any others? Okay. How about a motion to adjourn? Second. Janice is first. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.